So just whilst we're still waiting for a couple more people to enter the webinar, I'll kick us off. So I'll introduce myself. So I'm Katie. I sit on our specialist markets team at Michael Page, looking after everything within practice, all the way from part qualified up to partner, especially looking into sort of like top 10 and big four as well. Like I know we've got quite a lot of people on from those companies today. Also joined by my colleague George Weirden and our guest speaker Remi. So essentially we'll be doing a couple of these webinars throughout the year. It's basically just an idea for ACAs who are either coming up to qualification or who are already qualified to get a really good understanding of what's actually available to them post qualification. So a lot of people finish their 3 years in audit and they're like, right, I've got too many options to look at and it's quite overwhelming, and what can I actually go into. And what we actually do is a really good ACA mentoring program where we listen to your long-term goals, listen to what your inspirations are as to long-term career, and just kind of find out the best way to get you there, the steps that you need to take to get to your dream job. And so this is actually really helpful as well, because you'll be hearing from people from guest speakers from internal audit, maybe corporate finance, TS, FDs, FCs in different positions in different organizations, from SMEs up to large PLCs, just to get a good understanding of what's actually out there, listening to their tips and tricks along the way. I think also it's probably worth mentioning in terms of like housekeeping, if you want to, hopefully you should be able to see me and hear me and all the guest speakers as well. We will be doing some Q&A at the end of the webinar, so if you've got any questions in the meantime, then feel free to just type them in the webinar, type them in the webinar chat box, and we should be able to get to them at the end as well. But it's all, you don't have to go on camera or any or speak at all. It's literally just type a question in and we'll be able to see it and we can ask Remi that question. So without ado, I will head over to George Weirden and I'll let you introduce Remi.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And just quick introduction, I'm George Weirden. I look at the internal audit and risk positions across the north. So some feedback we've had from prior successful journeys in finances. How do I make that step into internal audit? It'd be good to get a bit of an understanding of what a career in internal audit and industry would look like. So good friend Remi Adeniji, who is the Internal Audit Manager at EuroGarages, is here today to talk through his career. So he trained within professional services and has successfully made that move into industry and is working at one of the biggest businesses in the north at EuroGarages, which seems to be in the news every week with a new acquisition. So yeah, without further ado, over to you, Remi, and keen to hear more of everything.
Thanks, George. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, my name is Remi Adeniji. I'm part of the internal audit team here at EuroGarages. Maybe to start off real quick, for those who perhaps aren't too sure yet what internal audit is about. So ultimately, internal audit departments, internal audit functions are there to provide independent assurance to the company's senior management, executives, board, around the company's processes in relation to managing or achieving business objectives and ensuring effectiveness and efficiency of those processes. I think the way I sometimes think about it as well, in terms of what's the difference between external audit and internal audit, is from an internal audit perspective, our focus is controls, risks, governance, efficiencies. We also look at the numbers as well. So yes, that's kind of how I think about the difference. So as George and the guys were saying, I work at EuroGarages, and maybe briefly on EuroGarages again, kind of in the news lately quite a lot with ASDA and everything else really. But so e.g., we run forecourts petrol stations globally, and the convenience side of that, so the shop products, as well as food services as well. So we run a number of franchise arrangements with Starbucks, KFC, Carrefour, Burger King, Subway. So we've got about 6,500 sites globally. Very entrepreneurial business, very agile, lots going on, as you can imagine, really. The ambitions of the company, the ambitions of the owners are kind of huge, really, and it does make for an exciting place to be in. I think despite the size, 2 billion euros, 17, 18 billion pounds 2019 revenue, about 44 plus thousand employees globally. So despite the size of the company, because of the entrepreneurial business, the entrepreneurial nature of the business, there is a lot to get into, really, and kind of quite diverse, and there's an opportunity to kind of move around and see different aspects. So I guess that's EG. What I thought would be useful is if I just spend for about 10 minutes walking through my career and what's kind of brought me to kind of this role here at EG. So kind of if I go as far back as A levels, I think I was always very good at maths and physics, and and whilst I was hoping to get kind of A's throughout, I got A, B's, in maths and physics, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to be an engineer. That was something that was always appealing to me. So kind of with that mindset, went to university, did a 4-year degree, did a master's in engineering, but whilst at university and the year before that, I took a gap year working for Arup. So they are an international engineering company. They designed or built the Sydney Opera House. They built the Millennium Bridge in London. So that's probably a couple of iconic structures there. So, great exposure, really opened my eyes to the world of engineering and really what I wanted to do and what I was interested in. I think the short end of it, after 4 years, I think I'd had enough, unfortunately. So it was good exposure, but I think for me, what really piqued my interest was working with people, working in business, working in finance. And so I started to kind of look around in that final year of university, what were the options, really. So the likes of Deloitte, PwC, these accounting firms, not sure what it's like now, but at that time, kind of good presence on campuses, really. So I went to a few career days, career fairs, really. And honestly, I think, I can kind of hand on heart say I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, kind of fell into. So I interviewed at EY and Deloitte. And by nature of Deloitte came back first before EY, so I went to Deloitte. There wasn't any kind of much of a rhyme or reason. So I don't know if I should say this, but I kind of fell into the ACA bucket, and I kind of fell. So I started my career at Deloitte in internal audits. I've always been in internal audit throughout my career, but with that ACA mindset to it, really. So, I've said it a couple of times now, fell into ACA, but it really, I think the confidence, the security that, comes with that qualification means that, well, it's the best decision I think I've made, certainly as it relates to my career, really. So started the journey at Deloitte. Training contract, and I honestly thought, hey, Deloitte's the way forward, really. Partner for life, kind of let's get going, partner in 6 years or 10 years or whatever that the record is. I think to be honest, now I should kind of feed this, let you guys know. So everything was going well at Deloitte, great foundation for my career, getting the basics right, obviously the qualification as well. First time passes, but the case study was a bit of a hurdle there for me that unfortunately I wasn't able to get over at Deloitte, which was a shame, which as you guys will know, with training contracts meant that I could no longer continue at Deloitte. So I had about a month out on the bench, really just studying, retook the case study exam, and was able to kind of pass it a month within kind of 2 months of leaving Deloitte. And so kind of that was almost like a few moment, right? You know, because at one point I wasn't sure that time and investment in the ACA was going to pay out, but in the end, once that text came through saying congratulations, you've passed, you know, well done, you know, you can now start using that kind of ACA designation. It was really a great moment, and the opportunities were there. Really, I think I was looking around, had a number of you know, calls, conversations with recruitment agents to see what the opportunities were. There was an interim role that I did take for about 4 weeks at Northern Rail. This would have been about two months after Deloitte. But funnily enough, just whilst at Northern Rail, another opportunity popped up at PwC. And so in my mind, it was, all right, you know, this is great, back into practice, almost, you know, thinking, you know, I can right what went wrong at Deloitte. You know, that was great, you know, coming in with that ACA qualification, you know, just opened the doors really at you know, in terms of the role at PwC. You know, I interviewed first of all with a partner, which normally it's, you know, you'd interview with a manager, senior manager, and then final interview with a partner, but kind of happened the other way around. I think partly it was because I was at Deloitte, and obviously that's part of the competition. I think there was some interest in understanding what Deloitte were doing versus PwC, but actually it worked out well. I got the job there. I took it because I did want to you know, like I say, right what went wrong at Deloitte. And again, for me, it was right, you know, same mentality, partner, here we go, kind of a deal, you know, 5 years or, you know, time I would make that. You know, great time at PwC, great time at Deloitte as well. You know, I think fundamentally, I'm not sure there's the only difference. What is the difference between the big four? I'm not sure. Even practice in general, I think fundamentally everyone's kind of working hard to deliver for clients. Really, you know, I did learn kind of things at PwC that perhaps I didn't pick up at Deloitte. So I'm being careful not to say disparaging things between the two firms. I think practice is a great place to learn and to really build up your experience and learn some of the soft skills as well that perhaps you may miss out on if you go straight into, or you may have to be more consciously develop if you go into practice. So I mean, sorry, into industry if you start off your career in industry. So for me, I think that you know, that my time at Deloitte and my time at PwC kind of complemented my skill set really well. But for me, I think whilst moving between Deloitte and PwC was more of a necessity because of the ACA. You know, my time or leaving PwC to make the next journey in my career was predominantly around being open-minded. You know, with the ACA qualification, you know, you've got that security, as I've already said before. So for me, it was what opportunities are there, whether, you know, my current role or externally, to grow professionally and to still kind of gain more responsibility and yeah, just be ambitious and go as far as I can, really. So that's kind of always been at the forefront of my mind in any role that I've taken, really. How can I contribute? How can I grow professionally? And also how can I yeah, increase my responsibility, my level of impact. So 4 years at PwC, learning, growing, which was good. The opportunity then was, do I continue at PwC or do I look externally? So I left, you know, PwC, moved to Univar Solutions, and I'll tell you a bit about Univar in a moment. But I'd probably say that was, again, an opportune time, really. At the time, I wasn't really looking to move, but what I was doing was kind of being open-minded. You know, what the opportunities are. I think I'd been in contact, you know, kind of maybe 2-3 years before with a couple of recruitment agents already, and they had me on their books still, and every now and then I'd get a call or an email or whatever to talk to me about roles, and I always listen to them, with that mindset of, where are the opportunities for me to grow professionally, and where are the opportunities for me to increase in responsibility. And it just so happened that I got a phone call to talk to me about the role at Univar, and it just dovetailed nicely with my time at, with kind of a natural flow of my in terms of where I was at PwC. Really, it was a point in time when, I potentially would have had to have waited a couple more years before making the next step up, at the time, to senior manager. And then there was a real dependence then, being able to demonstrate and make a case from a client's portfolio, new wins perspective, that I could, there was enough from a client perspective there to support that next step up to senior manager. And I wasn't seeing that on the horizon, versus there was a great opportunity to work for an international business on my doorstep, which Univar Solutions is. So Univar Solutions, they are, briefly on that, they are chemical ingredient distributor. So they supply into the likes of Pfizer and AstraZeneca, right, in terms of those the component parts that they will do, that they would need for pharmaceuticals. But they also supply into airports, for example, the grits that you need for runways, when we've got cold weather, food colorings, things like that. But the role there was still internal audit. So, as I've been talking to you about kind of Deloitte, PwC, my role has always been within that kind of that risk and controls and governance perspective. It hasn't really changed throughout. But yeah, so the role at Univar was that as well. So was to be the kind of the internal audit manager for Europe, and again, it was on my doorstep, 20 minutes from home. Fantastic opportunity to really work for an international company. I think, so that was my first move, right? And it's probably worth maybe just spending a bit of time around what is the difference between practice and industry. I think certainly at practice, what I really enjoyed was the variety, the different clients, right, 2-3 weeks on an engagement, and you're moving on to the next one. So that learning, that need to get up to speed with that business was always was a challenge, but growth as well in terms of my capacity. And variety, international travel in of itself, working with different, working and learning from really smart and skilled people. So that's, those are the real benefits for me in practice. And I think, over my 7 years at Deloitte PwC, I think in the back of my mind, it was, well, gosh, I can't imagine working for a company and still getting that benefit, just being in one business all the time and not seeing that variety. I think that was my main hurdle. But Univar Solutions, anyways, for me was an anomaly, in the sense that it gave that variety. It was a truly international business, right? Opportunity to work, speak to daily basis guys in Europe and interface with them, with Germany, France, Italy, and that's day to day. Yes, the UK was there as well, but ultimately the role was kind of an international person, and that's what appealed to me, and that's what gave me the variety. I enjoy travel. I enjoy working in different cultures. That was the real driver. But then as well, I think the thing that perhaps I didn't appreciate until I got into the role was, in practice, as I said before, there's the challenge and the variety of working with different clients all the time and different people, and needing to deliver and be on form, was a driver, and it was an opportunity for growth and a professional perspective. I think, in industry, the difference there now is, whilst perhaps in practice you don't necessarily have that time, potentially because you're always moving from client to client, or you don't see the end-to-end journey. In practice, in industry, you've got that time. You've got that time for more deeper thinking. You've got that time to make sure that the advice that you're giving the solution that you're trying to bed in is fit for purpose, right? I think, obviously in practice, you've got fees, right, that the client's going to pay for, and they're always very mindful of the fees, right, that they're paying us, or sorry, paying Deloitte, PwC, whoever they are. And so that sometimes can kind of limit the amount of thinking or time you can spend in that. I'm not saying that has a downside on the product that gets delivered, because I think it's still quality. But I think what I'm saying is that there is, from work in industry, for me, that I saw real value in actually spending more time thinking and engaging with the business, day to day, to ensure that what we're doing, what we're delivering is fit for purpose, and as well the satisfaction of seeing the journey. One of the reasons, one of the pieces of work that I did, and you would do as well with an internal audit, is building in a controls framework. I talked before about what internal audit's about, providing independent assurance to the senior executives business around the state of your internal controls. Help, but there's a real opportunity as well. It's here at EG, it's here in companies to also help from a advisory perspective, to help design and implement and be there in the journey, right? So yes, we raise recommendations, but then as well, be on the ground and actually see that recommendation being embedded in the company. And so that end-to-end piece is real joy and satisfaction there. But then as well, certainly, I'm a career internal auditor. In terms of the colleagues that I've worked with and people that I've worked in my team, internal audit, you have a quite a unique view of most or any organization that you're in the sense that you're the one organization who has the opportunity to go to any department and say, oh, tell me what you're doing. Can I understand what you're doing, right? And because that's what you're there for, right? You've been employed and paid to ask people, hey, what do you do? Can I understand your processes, please? And so you've got a really unique perspective that not every team, not most teams have, right? Where we touch on everything: IT, HR, operations, health and safety, legal, finance, obviously, right across sales, right across, the senior executives got access, opportunity to walk in, and so you've got a unique perspective of what's happening in the business, which is great. But then as well, the opportunities as well, where you can use internal audit as a means as well, like to get into the business. So if you want, if there are particular departments, initiatives, projects that you're privy to, and you've been able to foster that relationship with the stakeholders in those areas, right? That's a means, right, to supply to supply talent, excuse me, right? So internal audit can be a source of talent, is what I'm kind of saying, right, for the business. And so I've had colleagues who've moved into finance, moved into operations, right, moved into customer facing roles as well. The skill set, I think, in internal audit is very transferable. Right, more so if you've got the ACA qualification, you understand the numbers, right, the financials piece, right. Whilst I haven't ever posted an invoice or a journal ever in my life, I understand it from a controls perspective. I can see the numbers, right? But then, as I said before, the skill sets, the soft skills involved, required for internal audit means as well that you can move into even IT, right? When I think about some of the IT kind of roles we have here, it's not all technical, it's not all SAP related, right? It doesn't need to be that. So that's kind of a bit. So I've maybe spent a bit longer there, just trying to articulate and show the difference between practice and industry. So yes, that was my first move at Univar. And that was the move then that really led me to EG Group. Again, there wasn't any kind of that I've never had a 2 to 5 year career plan, or anything at all like that. I think for me, it's always been opportunities, right? Being open-minded, always thinking, hey, what opportunities do I have in my current role to grow professionally, to contribute, but then as well to kind of increase in my responsibility and step up and progress through. So that's always been kind of there in my mind, and yeah, if opportunities within a company, I'm always interested in seeing that. Is there opportunities for me to move sideways into the business, continue my journey within internal audit, or step away? I think it's a healthy viewpoint. And when I think back to my thinking at Deloitte, PwC, kind of partner, here we go. It didn't pan out, but I don't regret that. I think I've personally enjoyed my career, and I still am enjoying the journey. I think there's still more to go, but yeah. So the opportunity at EG, as I've touched on before, entrepreneurial business, fast growing. I think it's kind of potentially it has doubled in size really since 2017. Highly acquisitive. The owners have a real kind of passion for the industry that we're working in, and really ambitious as well for growth. For me, the opportunity at EG, why I left Univar, was opportunity to create an internal audit function from scratch for a 20 billion business. That's huge. Not many opportunities knocking around where you can create an internal audit function for that globally. So that was the real driver for this here, really, to help come in and establish bearing in mind we've got an entrepreneurial business, agile, fast pace. How can my team, us, kind of shape an audit function, internal audit function that's fit for purpose, that brings that balance between the opportunities, right, that the business wants and is seeking, and managing the risks profile as well, and having that balance in terms of controls and governance that the business can thrive in and still continue to meet its objectives. So that was the reason really for moving to EG. So I think that's kind of the career to date on that one, George. I don't think I've missed out anything, but I'll let you let me know.
No, brilliant. Thank you. That's absolutely great. And just to hear that transition initially into industry and the interim position back to practice, and then obviously within industry now. So I guess for anybody that is listening, if you want to send any questions into the box, we can send them across to Remi. But for some people couldn't attend, so we'll be asking questions on their behalf. So I guess one that we've got, which is quite popular when I'm speaking to people, is if they're from the external audit background, what kind of tips or advice would you be giving them if they were going for an internal audit role into industry when they're from that external audit background?
Yeah, I mean, good question. Obviously, as I said before, the difference between external and internal audit, from an internal audit perspective, our focus is always going to be the controls and the risk perspective. Whilst the external audit approach is fundamentally the numbers, and depending on your audit, on the audit approach on that client, perhaps you may have taken a controls-based approach. And so you may already have that in your bag, right? You already know what controls are, you know what role controls play in relation to the financial numbers. I think the only tip I can kind of give on is you want to prepare yourself to know that, if you're moving into internal audit, then the focus is fundamentally controls. We do use the numbers to drive where our work is, and we would want you'd want to bring in the numbers to help inform kind of the work that you're doing and the recommendations that you're raising. But for those that perhaps haven't been exposed to controls, then that will be my kind of encouragement there for you. To either in your current clients, having some conversations around a controls-based approach, right, and understanding how that can kind of help the audit. But then a bit of research, a bit of chatting and talking with some of no doubt kind of colleagues within practice who work predominantly in the space as well. So there may be an opportunity there to kind of spend some time within those teams. So that'll be the you know, as a recruiting manager, if I was interviewing someone from who was pure external audit into my role, I think, well, I'd, you know, I'm interviewing you because, you know, I've seen some soft skills, or I've, you know, I like your qualification, right? That's why I'm interviewing you. But then I think, so that's kind of one. So I wouldn't worry too much about not having the practical experience of controls, because there's a reason why I'm interviewing you. But I think being able to talk around controls, you know, either being able to kind of display your theoretical understanding of it, or actually being able to say, hey, you know, this, you know, we've done a controls based audit as part of our external audit piece. I think that you know, at least then you're telling or you're displaying to the recruiting manager that you've got a sense and understanding, broad understanding of the difference, right, and what you're, you know, where you're predominantly going to be spending most of your time in, which is around the controls and the risks and the governance.
Yeah,
right. Hopefully
I'll go with the question. Someone that sent me one earlier before, it said, what gets you out of bed every day? And I think it's sort of in the terms of what excites you to work for EG Group.
Yeah, you know, it's a fast-paced business. As I said before, lots happening, lots going on. The ambition as well of the owners is such that there is just lots to get into, lots to get going. And you know, I've said before that coming here was really to build and develop an internal audit function that's fit for purpose. And so that's what gets me out of bed, right, is to help, you know, ensure that the company, as it's striving for growth, as it's striving to meet its kind of strategic ambitions, can, you know, that opportunity to help ensure that we've got the fundamentals in place, right, to help, if you like, bring sustainable growth, right, if I can use that phrase, really. And in my mind, sustainable growth is yeah, you know, that top line number, whether that's organic or through acquisitions, it's, you know, we're meeting those objectives, but we're meeting in a way that, you know, we've got, you know, the financials sorted, you know, there aren't any question marks around that. We're not any question marks around our controls piece, really. That's our role, really, to support the business in achieving that. So it's the base, I call it that, the foundational basics, really. So yeah, that gets me out of bed, really, contributing meaningfully towards company objectives. That sounds a bit woolly, but hopefully the examples I gave kind of,
No, that makes sense.
that out.
And I guess one from me that probably a bit of a reflection as to what we see. Obviously, when you're trying to qualify, and upon qualification, it's all of a sudden, right, I've qualified now, I can make that move into industry. But there's so many different roles out there. There's so many different people sending me messages on LinkedIn. It's all of sort of quite overwhelming to start. I guess for people that have just qualified or are looking to make that first move into industry, what kind of advice would you give them, and what kind of advice you wish you received when you were in that position?
Yeah. I think it's good to be open-minded and to listen to opportunities. That's something that I can say I've done throughout my career, and the roles that I've moved into has been, honestly, it's been not me actively looking. It's because I've got a phone call or an email or something from someone that I've responded. Sorry, from a recruiting agent that I've responded to. I think probably in regards to kind of that first move and you know, what roles you'd go for. You know, it's going to, you know, that, you know, I think whilst I've not had a 2 to 5 year career plan in mind, I think broadly for me, it's an internal audit, right? It's an internal audit, but then as well, if there are opportunities to support and drive the business, you know, move out of internal audit to you know, then I'll look at that. I think, you know, there are folks who want to be CFOs, who've got that in a kind of very clearly defined. I think then it's having that good conversation with the recruitment agent to kind of work out what is the best roles, what are the roles that are still going to keep you on that path, right? I think just as a practical tip, you'd probably want, personally, maybe two recruitment agents that you keep in contact with kind of throughout the course of your career. So who kind of know you, right? How you understand kind of who you are. They've met you several times. You've had some good conversations. They know what you're looking for. I think in the past I've probably made the mistake of really. I think at one time I had contacts and information coming from 4 or 5 recruitment agents, right? And actually I was kind of accepting, kind of, when they came to me and kind of talked to me about opportunities, I think I was saying yes to 4 or 5 of those. This is kind of like 10 years ago now. Yeah, that's probably not the best, not the best approach. So you probably want to narrow it down to kind of 2 or 3 and just maintain a relationship. I think it's all about relationships, isn't it, really? I think sometimes when I think about the roles that I've made, it's been very rare that it's come from a recruitment agent that I've never spoken to before, who's never met me before. It's usually based on a relationship that I have.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think hopefully the idea of this is that we do speak to ACAs when they are at the beginning of their journey, because then we can help them the whole way throughout their journey, through their second move,
Right.
third move, or the rest of their career, and hopefully like place into their team in the future as well. But I get a lot of people, a lot of newly qualified ACAs who are in external audit, and they say, I really don't want to do external audit anymore, I don't enjoy it. And I always say, well, what about internal audit? Have you ever thought about that? And they go, oh, well, I don't really know too much about it, but it's actually quite exciting, like that what you've just said. Obviously, you get to see every different part of the business. But is there anything particularly exciting that you've done in your career that you thought, you know what, this is what I love internal audit?
You get ups and downs. There are times when it's kind of I think I don't want to be disparaging to any towns out in the north of England. In fact, I won't name any names, but where you're driving left and right of the M62 kind of corridor, and thinking, oh, just nowhere towns and nowhere places. You're getting up really early from, or you're driving back home in the windy rain, late in the winter. But kind of highlights, and when I talk about moving to Universal Solutions and even here is the international travel. I do enjoy spending time working in traveling, working in other cultures as well. So I think for me the highlights, right, of the more an exciting period is working in the Maldives, right? Getting a speedboat into work kind of throughout the 3 weeks I was in the Maldives was definitely a plus. Sorry, did I answer your question, Katie?
That definitely answers it. Yeah, exciting enough. Speedboat to work.
Slightly different than the Northern Rail, isn't it? And that's it's not a bad sell for internal audit there. And just had a question emailed in actually. So over to you more personally, Remi. Where do you see your career going next? Do you think that'll be within internal audit, stepping up into a director or head of role, or do you think that'll be more into the operations or finance side?
Yeah, I think I'm open-minded. As I said at EG, there's despite the size of it, you've got that entrepreneurial spirit, and there's so much more going on that you could get into things that perhaps you wouldn't be able to or have the opportunity to in kind of organizations of a similar size. And so yeah, so in terms of those 2 paths that you talk about there, continuing the journey within internal audit and get into that kind of head off role, or moving into the business. I think both paths are open, really. I think as I've kind of said throughout, for me it's can I still grow professionally? How can I contribute to the business, and how can I kind of still progress and increase my responsibility? Really, I think the skill set of internal audit that you have that you need in internal audit means, you know, you're not fixed to internal audit, and if there are opportunities in the business, why not? I think fundamentally it's grow myself personally and contribute. That's always been, if you like, my thinking.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't think I have any more questions. I don't know about you, George. No.
No, but I mean, if anybody watching or sees this is interested in our ACA mentoring scheme that we can offer, or any questions for me specifically with internal audit, then please do get in touch. But no, thank you so much, Remi, for your time. Really interesting to hear. Some good commutes there involved. Sounds amazing. But no, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
If you found this video helpful for your recruitment journey, why not subscribe to our channel? And don't forget to tap the bell to get the latest videos first.